Hey everybody, welcome back to your Dawn of Drones podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting. Can you believe we're already almost at the end of Q1 of 2023? It's absolutely insane. March 1st, we're kicking off a new month dedicated to the theme of future industry. And who better to talk about that than Airspace Link? We have with us today the CEO and president of the company, by the way, who's also sponsoring this month. So thank you, Michael Healander and team. We're going to be talking all about the ways that Airspace Link is preparing not only for operations today, but for the future of this industry. Michael, thanks to be on the show. So glad to have you.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been a long time. I've been wanting to get to talk to you. So.
I know.
Looking forward to it.
I know. Michael and I have been chasing each other like almost every event we see each other.
Yes.
North Dakota, AUVSI Expo, commercial UAV, you name it. We're CES. We're running into each other, his team and me. And I've been following Airspace Link from the beginning. Your company is relatively new. When you think, look, the drone industry, we can almost talk about it in terms of dog years, right? Every 1 year is almost like 7, but was it 2018 or what was the year that you all formed Airspace Link, you and Anna, your wife?
It was 2018 that the company was incorporated, but when we went and quit our jobs and did the typical startup thing, that was in 2019. So February of 2019 is where we kicked it off and really spent a year hunkered down just with the founders building out the first stages of our company.
Well, I want to talk about that inspiration, kind of that origin story, because like you said, you both quit some pretty good jobs and jumped into this industry with a vision. So tell us, what kind of inspired that?
Yeah, it's our life together. I think Danny and myself, the other co-founder, we've been working together for 14 years. We've been through 5 companies together, always solving complex problems and geospatial problems. And, whether it be traffic sign management systems for transportation we've built in the past, or indoor positioning and navigation and routing systems. We always watched the drone industry. We see it as a really large geospatial problem that requires multi-jurisdictional government communications and systems. It's digital. To us, you can't see the guardrails or speed limits or items in the sky. So it is a 3-dimensional problem. And then you're also trying to harmonize with safety, communities, governments, federal safety systems, and all of that together. So that's what inspired us, was how hard the problem was. But we're also inspired about how drones could bring a different type of mobility, whether it be through electrification, reducing the type of delivery system based on type of packages. There's just so many great things that come around using drones, and we figured we could provide a piece to the puzzle to support the integration of drones, and that's what inspired us, is all those areas.
Well, and here's a picture. I think this is you. It's Anna, your wife, and your co-founder Danny. Tell us a little bit about him.
Danny's pretty amazing. Danny and I met, I think, in 2009, 2010, and I remember interviewing him. He had just won a hackathon and when he won it, it was with a company called Esri. They had a hackathon, and he was able to buy his first house. Wow. From that point on, he was always I kind of had the vision, and he could go build it. And we just did it over and over again. And Danny can execute on some of the hardest technology, especially geospatial thinking. He's just a master of that. And his products, you can see it's in the Delta app, the indoor positioning and routing systems that you see, the map in there. Multiple. There's products out there that we've developed in the past that has fingerprints on it, and it's still out there today, years later. So he's an amazing technology genius.
Well, I'll tell you, you gathered an incredible team. We're going to talk more about that, you know, a little bit later, but I do want to let everybody know, shout out to Anna, your wife. She was on our Full Tilt Leadership podcast back in November. If y'all missed that, you need to go watch it. She shared her entire story, a little bit about the company, really great stuff. And she was also on our Clubhouse last week with Maggie Schuster. So if y'all missed that, go back and listen to that replay. So you used a couple terms, Michael, and I know this kind of became your mission, if you will, at Airspace Link. You used this term digital infrastructure. So tell us a little bit what you mean by that and how Airspace Link is kind of creating that as part of today's industry and the industry of the future.
Yeah, so I think I talk about guardrails and speed limits, and we used to build all these asset management systems in the past, the infrastructure and where our assets at, the speed limits and the street center lines and the curves and all those types of things. You don't see that in the airspace, whether you're a recreational or Part 107 pilot or advanced operator. The airspace is always changing. It's changing constantly, and the things that you're flying over are changing constantly. And to us, most of that is digital. You just can't see it, whether it be a temporary flight restriction, weather, ceiling heights, whatever that might be. To us, it's digital and it's moving around, but you can't see it. So we're the interface into that. We create the interface to whatever operation you want to do, but then give you context of what's happening on the ground and in the airspace. So to us, that's digital. Now, it can be coming from physical infrastructure, whether it be coming from radar or remote ID, or telemetry from the drone. Hardware is providing some of this data, but it's ultimately being fed into a digital world, digital twin type system to support operators for their safety systems. So that is our digital infrastructure, is the systems required to support operators.
I know you on your website refer that to kind of to that as like maps in the sky. By the way,
Yes.
Everybody out there, I know you're out there. Just want to remind you, this is live. I'm sure you've got questions for Michael, and if you don't have questions, just tell us where you're coming from and give us some positive encouragement. We love to hear from you. But Michael, I want to talk about something you all just released, and then I'm going to back it up to kind of go through all of your other products to explain the context of this latest release. So you have this thing called the hub, the Airspace Link hub, and tell us about what you just released, like in the last couple of weeks or within the last 30 days.
Yeah, so it's the Air Hub portal. We call it the platform, our platform right now. So over the past 3 years, we've been working with operators at all levels, whether it be recreational, mobile devices, Part 107, COAs, tactical beyond visual line set waivers, customizing their airspace, creating transportation planning, safety systems, area of operations 135 approval process. All of these systems and technology we've been working on, it's almost like there's individual apps for it. So we have pilots that use pilot apps for planning their flights and operations. But then we have backend systems that are used for supporting the data, the air data, the ground data, and the editing of the tools. It publishes into that, and some transportation planning tools. And then we have advanced system for the larger operators that are trying to build out these safety cases, and they have their own policies of we can't fly over certain areas based on our own policies for our company, and maybe we don't want to fly over a certain number of people and things like that. So all these models and technology is kind of sitting in these separate silo systems. What AirHub Portal allows us to do is that, a lot of these operators want to do some of the planning, want to publish some of their own data, maybe from the government, and then do their own mixtures and mix that all up into their digital infrastructure. So what we're doing is create a platform that when you log in, you can add all these different features and functions. You might be a pilot, but you might be a planner. You might be a public safety pilot, but you're also creating advisories of what's going on. Or you might need to fly under Part 107, but then an hour later, go fly on the Vantage system up in North Dakota, which is a much more advanced platform. Instead of having all these systems and connection, we just put it into this single platform that allows you to mix and match certain data and functions depending on what your use case is at that moment. And that's what Air Portal is. It's putting it into a single system, and it just changes what your interface looks like depending on who you are and your license level.
Well, I mean, that's critical, right? And I think, this is partly in response to how you have seen the industry evolve, right? Initially, I believe your focus on the government users, the public users was more, as you said, pushing out those advisories, but more increasingly, not just public safety, but, departments of transportation, right? They're using drones for, to inspect, roads and all kinds of things. So that's really cool that you continue to evolve with the industry, and I think that is critical and something that is needed. So Michael, your original products, which were, the original, let's call it the seminal Air Hub platform, right? It had, as you said, kind of not siloed, but separate buttons. And I think that's still on your website. If you're a Part 107, if you're recreational, or if you're government or public user, you still have that available to people. Is that right?
Absolutely. Those are still in full use and operating throughout the United States. Portal will be introduced throughout the year, and that system will be deprecated next year. But everything will slowly migrate over to the new platform and just be seamless to the users. And when they get into the new platform, all their data is already there. It's already in the new system. And they'll just transition over and have a lot more options and capabilities with the new platform.
Well, one of the first things that you all did as part of your digital platform was very early plugging in with the FAA, getting highly involved in what they're doing and becoming a LANC provider. How's all that going?
It's good. It's one of those things I think a lot of people take for granted. LANC, it's a lot of work, and it's become more and more complicated. We just introduced flights at night for recreational. That just went live 2 weeks ago. We now have higher security levels for our platforms. We have to renew that every year. It goes through months of testing. And I think people take for granted that we are tied into 700 airports. We do support drone operators at no cost to them right now. We're not planning on charging them in the future. But if you do want to start to really customize and use advanced tools, there's a price for that. But it's going great. It's just one of those things I hope a lot of people out there realize that it's a big level of effort to keep those systems up to date and providing authorizations to people in the U.S. And with that system, I think about 40% of the U.S. population is in controlled airspace, and that's a lot. Where LANC is definitely required in those controlled locations.
So that kind of information feeds into the system, but you're also grabbing, let's just call it public data and third-party proprietary data to create a holistic map in the sky from the ground up. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit more about what that looks like? What types of information are you grabbing that any pilot can access?
Yeah, so good way you put that, but can any pilot access? Well, in the version that's out there that most people access, that is free of charge, you can get in there, you can authorize your flights in really 5 seconds. And there's a process to fly now, click, understand where you're flying, and create an area of operation. There's a few other tools where you can add in the localized data for schools, hospitals, critical infrastructure, areas of potential hazards on the ground and in the air, temporary flight restrictions, weathers, things like that. In our advanced system, you start to get into population densities to the point where we have it where we can understand the number of people based on cell phones hourly. This area of operation at 2 o'clock tomorrow will have this number of people potentially that'll fly over. So you can really start to put some heavy duty analysis. So we manage about 60 data sets that includes advanced capabilities and advanced policies that you can put in. Maybe you want to say, hey, I want to gravitate operations over water along a flight plan, or I want to adjust routes to stay within certain policies that I've created, or for my safety cases and areas I have to avoid these certain items. You can put those into the model, and it will spit out the probabilities of impact to something on the ground or in the air. So what you have today for most operators is pretty simple, but you can get authorized quickly. If you need to satisfy the FAA safety systems or your own policy, there's an advanced set of tools that take that into account. Everything from building heights to LiDAR data, the tree canopies to cell towers to the number of people that are standing on the ground.
And some of that data is feeding in from ESRI, ESRI
Yes.
as well. Yeah. And I imagine, Michael, a big part of this is the data you're getting from regional governments, local communities that work with you to help feed into that system to really give a holistic picture of what's happening in their area. Is that the Fly Safe program? And if so, can you explain a little bit what that is?
Yeah, so what we realized right away that communities kind of feel like they're left out of supporting or being part of the drone industry, which has changed, by the way. So many cities are buying drones. Or originally they're like, how do we just support drones? How do we support recreational pilots? Point them to, make sure that, hey, we're in controlled airspace, make sure you're registering your drones with the FAA and just follow all the rules. So that's where FlySafe came in, but they're like, hey, we have a GIS system. We already manage, all kinds of parcel data and schools and hospitals and jails and helipads and all of this data is that of any use to operators. So what we did is we created a plugin through our partnership with Esri. Then we combined it. Esri has a plethora of data, business data and business analyst data, started putting that data together and then put in third-party data. And what that does is it allows them to have a pipeline out to our Lance suppliers or Lance operators. So now you have Lance capability, but then you have a sense of what's going on the ground. Even if there's a farmer's market going on, if you know that farmer's market is happening on a Sunday in the area you're about to operate in, then you have it will show up when you create your area of operation. You have a lot more aerial or area awareness through that FlySafe program. So FlySafe is a bundle for communities to help support the adoption of drones. They have a tool in there to create and even analyze where the best locations to put in a drone park. This gets into job creation. How can we diversify our communities? How can we create new different types of job training? Not just areas of, hey, concerns about flying over here because there's an emergency happening, but also here's a safe area to go fly and go learn to fly and do training. So that's how FlySafe came about, and it's grown from there to the point where they're like, how do we bring more drone operations? How do we use drones within our own operations for data collection in our GIS departments, roof inspections with the building department, parks and rec, creating recreational areas to fly. It's actually all the departments are starting to spread out, use it, but also publish it and embrace drone technology within their communities.
And I imagine, as the remote ID rule becomes fully implemented, I think it's this September for actual drone pilots to be compliant. And then for those that are not compliant, being relegated to flying in a federally recognized identification area. This is going to become so much more important for, local communities to be able to tell people like, hey, if you're not remote ID compliant, this is where you should be flying. Yep. I think that's absolutely spectacular. By the way, super fan Chris Geneseth is out there, and he's got a question for you, Michael. So I'm going to ask it.
Great.
He says, do you compile this data to prove out the safety case to the FAA? Great question. I was going to ask this because I was thinking BVLOS waiver, beyond visual line of sight waivers. Mm-hmm. Does it track successful missions? And can it be used that way to track success? So it's like kind of really two separate questions. First is, do you help pilots, companies, businesses, governments compile this data to present that safety case for beyond visual line of sight or other waivers that they're trying to obtain?
Yes, they have. We have, our data has been used to get approval at some of the highest level operations out there. Now that we can disclose, it will be disclosed by the customers when they're ready. But yeah, that is used, and they have a certain criteria that comes in from the FAA. That's how we started 3 years ago, was these waivers going in. They're like, well, how do you know all the buildings are such height? Okay, well, they go and collect the data. How many roads are you going to pass over? Well, then they go collect all that data. How many lanes, and what are the speed limits, and what are the probabilities? So the That's how we built our system, was getting the pushback from the federal government. And then what we did is every time we solved for it, then we automate it and spread it across the entire US, because you could run it in real time, no matter where you're at. How do you know that populations don't change from morning to night or in the afternoon? Well, then we had to get, positioning data of cell phones to quantify the number of people are going to fly in real time. So to answer your question is yes, and it's been used, and we have to put it in a certain format that the FAA uses, but we put it in a format that operators and geospatial people can understand and model as well. So to answer that, yes, that has been used and approved.
And
up to 135 too.
Up to 135, and that's the
Yeah.
drone delivery, the on-demand carry.
And again, I'm not even the expert. I have a team of experts that understand, but it's a big deal. Yep, and it's and there'll be some announcements at UVSI.
Awesome. And then his second question, which is kind of related. There's two more questions that are related.
So the tracking.
Does it track? Yeah.
So on that, we have partners that do that. So we try and find the line of airspace link at what we're really good at, and then we have partners that are maybe deeper into the telemetry and the fleet management and things like that. But when you put those systems together, is where you start to see the magic.
Yeah, well, a lot of magic there, and I know you can't maybe necessarily reveal some of these companies or governments that used your data to obtain waivers, but Michael, I mean, it's very public. You guys have been doing some incredible operations, I believe, up in Detroit, right, where you guys are headquartered. Didn't you do some significant kind of cross-river, cross-country deliveries using your system with a whole host of partners?
Yeah, there's been a lot of operations. It's just recently announced we're supporting Workhorse for some medical deliveries. They have the electric vehicle with the built-in drone.
Yeah, they were on the show last year.
Oh, okay. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
So great team. They'll be doing some operations this summer. We got the award. We do have Mission Go with Beaumont Hospital. It's been called Miracle Mile, running operations in Royal Oak and Birmingham, which is a pretty densely populated area. Just an amazing team there, by the way, Mission Go. They're super professional running operations. Again,
also on the show previously.
Okay.
Last November. Yeah, they were our month sponsor last November. Yeah.
Yeah. So we brought in, and again, this is where communities come in. All these projects have been created because of our Fly Safe program. Is how do we bring in operations? How do we fund those? And how do we get our businesses involved? It's happening over at repeat. We have golf course deliveries, and they all are pushing for the state to do bigger and better things. So the state of Michigan, MDOT, did put out a RFP. We did win it. We are completing a 12-month review of the feasibility for the state, but then part of that was funded by Ford and Ontario, Canada, to do cross-border operations feasibility. So that has been completed and will be published in the next 6 weeks, I'd say. So that will complete. It's about 200 pages. I'm not sure it will all make it out there, but it should be published by the state of Michigan. On that, it created another demand where there's large automotive companies that we can't, but there was a border shutdown for 10 days. And, in Detroit to Windsor is the busiest cross-border for cargo in the country. And some of these companies lose about $10 million a day and not being able to get small chips across, fasteners across the border. And it's a big deal for Canada too, because, they don't want those factories pulled back into the United States. So there's a big push. We have a full team. Again, it hasn't happened. The operations haven't been, but there's a big team. And it's customers. We have multiple have a really great operator involved. Again, we're just cautious on we're the orchestration, we're the enablers. We'll let them do all the publishing of that, but we're the ones that actually got the award to set it up and make these happen. So stay tuned for that.
That's awesome. Well, they say if you build it, they will come, and clearly you've built it and they are coming. So that's really cool.
The customers too. I mean, it's a real business case with real financial impact. And when you can look across the border and you can see your supply center, they own property on both sides, and they cannot get anything across. It costs minimum $50 for anything to get across. And even if you jumped in your car and took it across the border, it takes time.
Yeah, so I mean that's super significant. And you've not only built this infrastructure, you've built this return on investment, for several communities, and now there's others are seeing it and they're jumping on board. That's so cool. You also obviously built an incredible team. And I want to talk about that because environmental issues I know are very important to you, as is social issues, governance, ESG, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here we have a picture. It looks like some of your team here. And I'll tell you, like, I see, as I look at this picture, Michael, it's just like I see men and women both. And, in this industry, in most businesses, you take a snapshot of a meeting like this, and it's going to be, frankly, mostly men, right? So tell us a little bit about the team you've built and the emphasis items that you've placed in building that team.
Yeah, it starts at the top. My wife is a founder. She helped she did start the company, and it does start from there. And then from there, you drop into leadership. Making sure that we have the right people, but then also the diversification. And it is a challenge. It is a challenge in this industry because you have to work really hard to find those people, because it is 90%, 80 to 90% male in this industry. It is what it is. And so we do our best to bring in those people, but areas that we can, we find adjacent industries, whether it be in transportation, mobility, and transfer GIS mapping systems, and try and find those adjacencies. So that is something we work really hard on. I have a great person, head of people operations, that does that. But we take the best person, but we also look for diversification.
Well, and when you talk about the future industry, it's going to have to be diverse to succeed, right? I know Vertical Flight Society has put out some papers. Multiple people have put out papers on this, but I know VFS in particular, for the eVTOL world, electric vertical takeoff landing, urban air mobility, advanced air mobility. They're saying they're going to be like 10,000 engineers short if they don't inspire some women, right, to get more interested in STEM. So very significant issue. And by the way, congratulations, you've been recognized not only by Women in Drones in 2021, I'm going to say, for their diversity award for your company, but also more recently, I think last year, for being one of the best places to work. Tell us, we talked a lot with Anna about that on her leadership podcast, but I love like the culture that you created, and just looking at you right now, like your office looks cool. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I've worked, so I guess it's a testament to the people that are working with us now. We have 50 people full time. 15 of those have worked with us, our founders, over the past 10 years. And then we have a whole lineup of people. I think what we found is, as each business we've had and grown them, we kind of get the band back together, or whatever it might be. But we've taken bits of a medium-sized company. I worked, as a VP of a $1 billion company for 3 or 4 years, a 5-person company. And what we did is, all right, how do we take the best of all pieces of those for this company? At Airspace Link, we made a vow that we're going to do our best to have that type of mid-company size mentality. A little bit on the startup, not too much where our hair's on fire, but not big corporate that we can't move fast enough. So we tried to find that balance, and we hired the people to help us figure that out. And along the way, we've picked up a lot of awards, to the point where I have a hard time tracking them. We really have picked up a lot of awards, and
it's a good problem.
It's a vision. I create a vision, but they are executing on it. They're working really hard and go the extra mile to provide a great place to work. We're not perfect. We're still growing, and the market is, but we do our best, and that's all we can do.
Well, it's a great problem to have, to lose track of all the awards you're receiving for your company, especially since, we're talking 2019 to now, right? Like, and a lot of businesses have been snowballed in the last couple of years. Not only are you leaders in the digital infrastructure world and this idea of social issues and helping the future workforce and kind of the culture you're creating, but also just general thought leadership in the industry. So I want to talk for a second about the UAS integration framework that you all put out last year. And I'm laughing a little bit because I believe it was in 2012 in the FAA Reauthorization Act, Congress told the FAA, create a UAS integration framework, and I don't think I've seen it yet. But you all did one, and you use the same terminology, you use that title, very powerful. It's what the industry needs. It's a great document. Talk to us about first of all why you created it, and second of all, walk us through the bits and pieces of that, because it's really key to everything you're doing.
Yeah, this is a game changer for us as a company, because we are dealing with a lot of different personas. You have the federal government, national governments, you have state and local governments, whether they're users or supporting it. You have operators and manufacturers, and then you have the businesses and citizens. So you have 4 different levels of like personas. And then you have complexity, where level 1 is like recreational pilots, and level 6 is, air taxis flying around it just doesn't exist today. So we had to put the scale and process in place, because people are on these different points in their journey. And when they say, hey, I just want to know where to fly as a recreational pilot, make sure I'm flying correctly. Okay, these are the solutions and the things you have to think about. Well, I'm a Part 107 pilot, and I want to use certain drones under certain conditions to do certain things. And well, those are different types of solutions at those levels. And it requires a different type of connection into the FAA and LANC authorization and getting your pilot license. So there's all these different things you have to worry about at level 2 that you don't have to at a level 1. And then from there, you get to a point, well, hey, we're public safety. We want to get a COA. We don't want to authorize with LANC every time. We want to get a tactical beyond visual line of sight waiver. Those are advanced capabilities they're going to need. What type of drone should I buy if I'm working with a city, or I'm collecting data, but this drone software doesn't work, or others? So the problems really change. And then you get up to, I want to do beyond visual line of sight. How do we even plan for that? How does the government support that? How does the state even help fund that? How's the federal government deal with that? Then there's a different type of operator. And then you get into the companies going through their type certification. What areas can we operate in that would be okay to operate? So we have all these moving pieces. And so whenever a customer comes to us and says, hey, we're a large logistics company and we want to do these. Well, they're a level 4 wanting to do these types of operations that need certain type of data and solutions, versus a Part 107 pilot trying to do pipeline inspection, and they have a different set. So what we do is, anyone comes to us, we understand where they fit on the chessboard, and then we make sure everything aligns around them so that they can be successful. And if they want to move up through the framework, sometimes we have to move the FAA with them. So cross-border, how hard is that? Well, that's super hard. Now we need an operator an operator that's approved on the NAV Canada and Canada side, but also approved on the US side, and then work through all those pieces. And then we also need the FAA to be on board, along with NAV Canada, along with cross-border protection, along with 5 other groups. And that's not a Part 107 conversation. That is a different one. So that's what we use the framework for. And all the solution, anyone comes to us, we can just go point to it, whether you're a developer on our team or an analyst. That you're building a data or solutions that support a certain piece of the puzzle. And if we don't do it, we have partners that do it. We have really great partners, from Esri, from localizing our data out in Dubai, to Thales, who manages 40 to 60% of the world's airspace. It brings in some surveillance and communication networks in the areas of the level 4 and 5 type solutions. So that's how we created the framework, was to allow us to plug all the gaps, whether we have it or partners have it. And we'll talk to the cities and the counties. I mean, one time we got stuck with a city we're still stuck with 4 months of trying to let us do flights through their city, because they're just so nervous about it. And I know you can fly the FAA, but it doesn't go over well when the city's not happy about it. So we find ourselves having to work with them to even get them on board so that they can go do those advanced operations.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned 3D, in terms of map in the sky and like digital twins. As I think about your framework, Michael, it's almost like this 3D framework, because an individual company or pilot or even government, they don't operate in a vacuum. It's not just a 2D sliding scale, right? So I love the example in that framework where you say, hey, here's a Part 107 pilot. He or she is at a level 4 because they're doing maybe like, just say, drone in a box advanced long line linear inspections beyond visual line of sight. They want to do this in a locale that is at level 1. I mean, they haven't even, they don't have a fly safe program. They have no clue how drones operate in their location. Maybe even they've even published some unhelpful legislation or a local rule about takeoff and landings in certain locations. And then to have to work with not only that pilot, but then go back to the government and say, hey guys and gals, you've got some folks here that want to do some amazing things, and they're hamstrung, and they're gonna up and leave. They're gonna go somewhere else. And I think that's really valuable tool, not only for the person trying to do the ops, but for the community to understand, like, this is, as you say in your paper, there's an economic piece to this. I mean, the counties, the governments, the states that are on board and moving forward, they are going to be light years ahead of those that have not done anything to prepare for that future industry. So I feel like, I know I'm being a nerd here, but I feel like your framework is really critical. And everybody, I know we dropped this link. Go to it, read it, take it on board, because frankly, Airspace Link, being the thought leaders they are, the only ones that have put out something like this. You don't even see this coming from the federal government. So thank you for doing that. I just really wanted to foot stomp that. I think it's a really great piece of thought leadership for this industry to take on board.
And I'll just, after listening to you, one of the things that has changed, the market changed for us a little bit, took us off guard, is now these communities are saying, hey, we want to fly beyond visual line of sight. Our departments want to start to use drones to do drone in the box. How do we support ourselves, but also the industry? And that's where I hope people realize that, when we're working with, they're saying, well, how do we pay for some radar systems, extra surveillance to support us as operators that prove to the FAA that we're flying safely and the crop duster is not going to fly through, but also allow that open so that other operators can apply for waivers under this data and infrastructure within our city. So now we have 5, 6, 7 operators applying for waivers on a system that's being paid for by us, by a community or county, or and a lot of times states now. So I think that's really important that now the cities have turned from, we don't know how to support drones, to, hey, this is great, but we want to use it ourselves. And how do we make it so it's shared so that anyone can use it, but we also need to use it ourselves for our police department, and we want to make sure it's available for us for certain use cases. So it's really been eye-opening. The framework has gone from one thing to another. So.
Well, and I think you're right, Michael. We've seen a level of professionalism across all aspects of the industry over the last few years. And I don't know if COVID jump-started that, this idea, drones being the ultimate social distancer. And like you said, the cross-border, the border's closed for whatever reason. We need to fly things. People need medicine. All of these really drones for good use cases. And obviously the work that Airspace Link has been doing to prove out, like, we can show you the air risk, we can show you the ground risk, we can show you the population data, we can do this safely. We just need that opportunity. And once you show them, like I said, you build it, they will come. They will keep coming back, and more people will. So it's snowballing, and I think that's awesome. Thank you for what you're doing. Speaking of money, like money, money makes the world go around, and we've seen some consolidation over the last year. We've seen some people go under. You guys are still going strong because of the model that you've created and all the partners that you've amassed that are moving this industry forward together. That grant money, the infrastructure grant money, and the money you're talking about, the state level, these use cases can help people advocate for those funds. And I'm going to go out on a limb here. Y'all are kind of indirect beneficiaries of that in the Michigan area where you are, hypothetically, even where you're sitting right now. Do you want to share with us? This is kind of a big big news thing. Can you share with us a little bit of your new headquarters location and how that all came about?
Yeah. So you said two things there. One is, yes, we do have a team that just writes. We have a team of writers that are out there, and we've been earmarking infrastructure funds to support drone operators in the future, whether it be help with waivers and infrastructure and systems to support them. Close to $100 million has been earmarked. So a lot of hard work working with communities to then go apply for those. So those will be coming over the next 4 years and are. But at the same time, Michigan has made some pretty big investments as well. And I love this picture you just put up because we just softly announced that we're moving our headquarters starting next week. And so April 1st will actually probably be when we are fully 100% in. But I guess we'll go with Bill Ford is investing $1 billion into the Michigan Central. It's a train station there, that area, to be the mobility hub for state of Michigan. So $1 billion being put in there. And we were convinced to move our headquarters there and be one of the anchor tenants. So we'll be one of the first technology companies in there. Again, we align with mobility. So this will be a full, they're going to have autonomous vehicle lanes. They're going to have self-charging, roads, every type of technology you can think of. And air mobility is a massive part of that. So they have a big budget for that. Airspace Link is really unique where we're coming in and dropping in as kind of this neutral platform where different types of operators, manufacturers, our office, we can see across the border where the cross border is happening. So we can see we're right at customs, right on the water. And they wanted to provide services to the community of Detroit using drones. So this is through a process of the analysis with the state of Michigan, the feasibility. The state will, decide where certain operations are happening, but those automotive and mobility groups have already said, hey, we're moving ahead and we're investing in that, and in drones is a big deal. So for us at Airspace Link, we're honored to be moving our headquarters to a mobility hub, and we'll be a key part of that. And our partners as well will be benefiting from this system and potentially have their own operations center there and can start conducting operations and have customers lined up to use their services.
Wow, it's gonna be really interesting, Michael, at the end of this year when the George Mason University publishes their drone friendliness index, to see who pops out on top. Because last year was a big upset, right? Like Oklahoma popped out on top in North Dakota, and everybody was like, what just happened? And now I'm hearing Michigan. I mean, I don't know. I'm not predicting. I'm not going to make any predictions because I think this year we're going to see places like Michigan and other states that maybe have had historically other focus areas all of a sudden say, hey, no, we're the hub. We're the ones you need to be coming to. So that's exciting that you're a big part of it. We are like 2 minutes out. And what I don't want to do is end the show without giving you, Michael, an opportunity to discuss anything that I missed in asking you about everything you're doing. And certainly, please let us know where people can maybe find you in person next, what show you're going to, and how they can reach you. I know that's a 3-part question, but maybe you just can find that answer and I'll stop talking.
All right, you might need to help me, so I'll go backwards from it. I'll be at the Esri Partner Conference this weekend out in Palm Springs, but that is more in the geospatial industry. Following weekend, I'll be at South by Southwest. I'll be presenting with Scott Plank with Mission Go and their hospital networks and medical delivery. And then, I don't know, after that, we'll be at AUVSI and things like that. But those sort of places I'll be in person. Some of the things I want to end with is, it's an interesting market. There's a lot of things, economic pressures. There is the industry is under some pressure right now. The startup industry is under a lot of pressure. It's hard to raise capital. There is going to be some consolidation. There absolutely it is. We're seeing it at Airspace Link. I'll say we're lucky. We're lucky. We raised $23 million 7 months ago and haven't touched it yet. So we're in a really good position to apply that money at the right times and monitor the industry. But I'll say we're not going to be successful unless operators are successful. So we're good for a while, and we can weather the storms, and we'll earmark dollars. And sometimes we don't know how those dollars are going to be put aside for operators, but we're making sure to set aside that there's ways to make the barriers lower. If we have to keep doing waivers for the next 5 years, and we need to, create a repeatable process, we're going to go invest, and we're going to go invest in our partners, whether you're an operator or manufacturer or a city, whatever that might be. We'll use our framework and our friends and get people successful, because our cities aren't going to be successful unless people are operating as well. So that's our job now, is as we do these deployments, now we need to show benefits, and we're here for everyone.
Oh, that's awesome. I was just thinking the Beatles song would get by with a little help from my friends. And you've amassed a great community around you, a great team, amazing framework, digital infrastructure platform. So everybody, we are at the end of our time. I know this was kind of a whirlwind tour of Airspace Link. By the way, Michael is also going to be on a panel at our Law Tech Connect workshop at AUVSI Expo on Monday, May 8th. So please join us. He's going to be talking about AAM infrastructure on that panel. So really excited to have Michael and the Airspace Link team at AUVSI Expo as well. All right, that's all she wrote, everybody. We are out here. Thank you so much, Michael.